we are talking about a topic that many of you may have struggled with either in the past or you're struggling with right now. And some of you may not even know it. I mean, you might know it a little bit, especially if you're kind of, let's say, backed up, quote unquote. So we're talking about fiber. Fiber and the 9 ways for you to get more fiber in your diet. Because let's face it, this whole thing in terms of transforming your body, transforming your health, transforming your life to be a leaner, healthier, stronger, more badass version of who you are now is not necessarily all about calories and protein and working out. Yes, they are the lion's share. When we look at the pyramid of what matters in terms of importance, yes, calories are high up there. Then it comes your protein, your carbs, your fat. Then it comes sleep and all these other things. But micronutrients and fiber do figure in there somewhere because, okay, they're not the most important element for weight and fat loss, but they are important, especially for overall health. So once you've got that base foundation of calories in place, then you do need to start thinking about other things. You can't just stop at calories and that's it for the rest of your life, because you could be eating Pop-Tarts, Haribo, and fucking protein shakes all day long, but that's not the diet of a healthy, well-adjusted person. So right now, I'm going to take you through 9 ways to get more fiber in your diet, because it's important that you're regular. It's important that you don't get backed up. You don't want, to use a bit of a pun, a log jam. You want to be passing through logs on a regular basis. I'm trying to make this not as base as possible, but you know what I mean. You don't want to have this sort of feeling of uncomfortableness where you're constipated all the time. You want to have a nice free-flowing bowel. It's kind of like, you know, logs rolling and gently caressing down a lazy river. Something like that. That's what we want. So how do you actually get more fiber in your diet? And it's often not as simple as you may think, because it's easy to say, for someone to say, get more fiber in your diet. But what does that really mean? How do you actually make some practical changes to actually make that happen? How do you get that into your diet? Because most people, especially in the Western world, are probably not getting the amount of fiber that they need on a regular basis. Most often, they're around about the 15, 16, 17, 18 grams of fiber per day mark. And you probably really need to get right up towards 25 to 30 grams to be optimal in terms of the amount of fiber that you're having. And this is especially important when you're talking about a high protein diet, because you could potentially have some problems in terms of gut health if you've got a very high protein diet and you're not having enough fiber. That can be a thing. So most of you who are listening to this, watching this, will definitely be opting for more higher protein diets and more higher protein foods. So it's important that you don't neglect your fiber intake. Okay, so cool. What we're going to go through now is these 9 steps. Bear with me. We're going to go through them fairly rapid fire. So make notes. Get a pen and paper handy, pause me, whatever you want to do. Just make sure you get these down, because these are going to be practical tips. We're not just talking about theory here. We're talking about actually how to get it into your diet. So number 1, let's start right back at the start of the day and talk about your breakfast. That's if you're having it. If you're intermittent fasting, you can skip on to the next one. But we're talking about breakfast here. So there's lots of different breakfast options you could have. You could be looking at, you've got eggs, you've got maybe you're having some oats and things like that. So it's about making sensible suggestions and sensible adjustments within what you're having already to incorporate some more fiber. So you could go for high fiber breakfast cereal, for example. So if you've got like your Weetabix or shredded wheat, things like that, maybe some no added sugar muesli, because we want to keep the calorie content down a little bit. Bran flakes, porridge, oats, all of these are great options in terms of your fiber. They are going to give you a little bit of boost in fiber so that you're not really reliant on having all of your fiber in the later part of the day. There's nothing wrong with having fiber at different times of the day. I'm not saying that. It's more attuned that, you know, trying to get all your fiber into 1 or 2 meals is much harder than getting it consistently throughout the day. That's more of the principle I'm going through. So number 1 would be try and make some adjustments to your breakfast so that you incorporate some higher fiber options, and those being the ones that I went through just there. Next up, you could then add some other stuff to that breakfast to again increase the fiber content. So for example, you could add some fresh fruit, you could add some dried fruit, you could add some seeds, you could add some nuts, and all those sorts of things to make the fiber content a little bit higher. And this is especially true maybe if you're currently going for a very high protein breakfast. So maybe you're having some, like everyone's favorite, Fayet, Faj, Badge, still don't know how to say it, but that stuff. Maybe you're having that in the morning, high protein, low in fat, great option to kickstart the day, helping you keep you full for longer. I feel like that's my fucking catchphrase. But yes, you could add some fruit to your Fayet, Faj, whatever you want to call it. You could add some fresh fruit to that. You could add some dried fruit to that. You could add some chia seeds to your porridge. You could add some nuts to your porridge. You could add some nuts to your yogurt. All these different sorts of things you can do to tweak and change. And you know, you're not trying to get like 30 grams of fiber into one meal. It's just about trying to get consistently small amounts so that you can spread that fiber content throughout the day. Again, you don't have to spread it throughout the day, but it just makes more sense and it makes it easier. So that's number 2. So number 1 was make higher fiber choices for your breakfast options. And then number 2, when you're having those high fiber breakfast options, try and get a little bit more in there with some other sort of additions that make logical sense for those food choices. So it's not like you're having, I don't know, fresh fruit and some sort of random knob of butter or some shit like that. It's you're making logical additions to already good choices that you're making. Number 3, we're going to talk about bread. Bread isn't the fucking devil. Now, most people will say, oh, you got to avoid bread. Bread's the killer. Bread makes me bloated. Yes, bread does make you bloated if you eat a fucking loaf of the stuff. And bread, sometimes when you are susceptible to hunger and cravings, is not a great option because it's very calorie dense. So it means that you don't have much of it for a high calorie return. So it can be a bad option. I won't say bad, that's a bad word. It's not a great option if you suffer with cravings and if you suffer with hunger. If you don't suffer with that sort of stuff, then cool, go for your life. If you wanted to get slightly more fiber though, you can obviously go for whole grains and whole meal options like seeded breads and things like that, just to, again, increase the fiber intake a little bit. And if you're someone who just likes the taste of white bread, that's cool. There are some options where you can get like 50-50 mixes, so you kind of get the taste of that white bread, but you also get in some additional fiber from the whole grains and that sort of stuff. So don't feel like you have to remove bread at all. It's not about elimination. That's the whole process here. It's, again, adherence to your calorie deficit is the most important thing. And if having bread and those sorts of foods helps you to adhere to your diet, then that is a good thing. But again, once you've got those foundations in place, you can still start to make little tweaks and little adjustments so that you can refine and improve your diet. And one of those things that you could do would just be to increase that fiber content just a little bit by making those small and subtle changes. So that's number 3. Moving on to number 4. We're still on this sort of whole grain, whole wheat vibe. And you could look at, you know, your pastas, maybe like bulgur wheat, brown rice, your sort of carby, starchy options. Again, going for the whole grain versions, the whole wheat versions can add that little bit more fiber into your diet. So again, we're not saying like there's foods that you can't have anymore. I'm not saying you can't have pasta, you can't have brown rice, or you can't have rice. It's just about making tweaks on those things. And again, these are small little tweaks that you should really not notice in terms of taste, in terms of meal volume, in terms of how much food you're actually having, and all these different things. But they are going to have an incremental effect on increasing the amount of fiber that you have in your diet. So even by just doing these 3 or 4 different things, you should be noticing in the back end some positive results. And by positive results, you know, rather than it being like this sort of traffic jam of shite, we're now sort of got this real steady flow of traffic. And, you know, as my dad used to say, my dad used to be very, very impressed when he passed a very impressive stall. And he used to say, it looked like a baby's arm holding an apple. That was, I don't know if that is a good analogy for a good looking poo, but that's what my dad used to say. So, hey, so you can ask my father, John Mitchell, if passing that sort of log is a good thing. But anyway, those 3 or 4 things, you should be starting to notice some incremental benefits to your fiber intake without actually making too much adjustment to your diet itself. The next option that we're going to go for is number 5. And this is all about, again, we're talking about carbohydrate options. So you can go with potatoes. Potatoes are great, great food. Potatoes are one of the most filling foods that you can have. Like white potatoes, amazing, amazing in terms of keeping you feeling full, keeping hunger at bay, but also packed full of fiber. And especially so when you've got skin on. So think about your baked potatoes, your jacket potatoes, wedges, boiled new potatoes. Those sorts of things really are going to be great options in terms of adding fiber in. Also, when you cook, cool, and reheat, then that increases the amount of resistant starch within those particular foods. So again, that's going to be a good thing in terms of keeping you regular, in terms of everything flowing well. So hopefully you can see, you know, we've covered 5 different options already there, and you can see that this isn't a huge difference to your diet, or at least it shouldn't be. I mean, if you are eating pizza, Pop-Tarts, Haribo, and hot dogs every fucking day, then yes, this is going to be a significant change to your diet. But I'm going to hazard a guess that you are a little bit more intelligent about your food choices right now, and you currently don't resemble the diet of a 5-year-old's birthday party. It's not all about jelly, ice cream, crisps, and fruits and veg being the devil. You've got more balanced diet. And obviously, if you're going for something like the carnivore diet and shit like that, then maybe you're going to have some problems when it comes to fiber, but that's a whole different ball game. So now we've gone through breakfast, we've gone through bread, we've gone through your carb options. So let's talk about everybody's favorite thing, snacks. Because everybody that I come across in terms of trying to lose weight, trying to lose body fat, trying to change their body composition, snacks are often the point at which not necessarily they fall down, but they find it a struggle. People love to snack. People love to have little nibbles throughout the day. And that's cool. You can have that if you're managing your calories and you want to have those little things, then absolutely have snacks in your diet. But again, if you want to increase your fiber at the same time, making good snack choices is a great way to do that. So let's think about like fruit, vegetable sticks. So you've got like carrot batons and celery stuff, cucumber. Might sound fucking boring, but it actually helps. You've got crackers, oat cakes, you've got nuts and seeds again. So all these different sorts of things. If you're smart about your snack choices, you can definitely use that to your advantage if your goal is to increase your fiber intake. And again, this comes back to there are different levels to your nutrition. So when you're first starting out, maybe you're an absolute newbie. You've heard about this calorie deficit thing. You're not really quite sure what it is, but you know you need to lose weight, and you kind of have gone on board with this idea of a calorie deficit. Okay, when you first start, you're really just going to focus on that calorie number, getting that right, making small adjustments to your current diet so that you're actually eating the right amount of food. That's where you're going to start. Then you might say, well, okay, well, now I want to increase my protein because I want to build some muscle. I want to feel less hungry. So protein is going to help me do that. So you focus on optimizing that. Then you focus maybe on optimizing your fat intake, looking at your carbohydrate intake. You're then focusing on your sleep, maybe looking at timing of your nutrition around your workout. You've got building up all these various different things over time, because this doesn't happen overnight. Then once you've got all that in place, you may be saying, well, okay, the next goal is to really optimize what I'm eating to A, get me closer towards my goal, but also to optimize my health. So this is where making good snack choices, good food choices can really help, because yes, you can snack on chocolate bars and things like that, but if you are low in something like fiber, you need to start having a conscious effort to make decisions and moves to improve that. The next one then is to look at your main meals. So this would then be to look at including plenty of vegetables with your meals. So I often say to people, like if you're just looking at it visually, half your plate filled with like green, fibrous vegetables like broccoli and things like that is going to be super important. Helping you feel full, very low calorie, lots of vitamins, lots of minerals, and fiber too. So it's a real beneficial thing to pack your plate full of vegetables. Don't forget, they do have calories, so don't be the moron who overeats on vegetables, although that's going to be hugely difficult to do. So you can either have that, like if you're having a very tasty meal like curry or something like that, you can have that as like a side dish and you can have it with it, or you can mix it in depending on what actual dish you're having. But just make sure that you're consciously making a decision to get more fruits, vegetables into your day, but also in those main meals, packing them full of vegetables. It's a great opportunity for you to do that. Then have a think about, again, like this is point number 8, is looking at things like pulses, your beans, your lentils, your chickpeas. Sounds boring, sounds like one for the veggies and the vegans, but it is actually going to be beneficial from a fiber point of view. And you can add that to various different meals. So whether you're making some sort of stew, a curry, a salad, you can incorporate these different things into your diet to again increase fiber. So think about the type of meal that you're creating and think about, how do I actually increase the fiber content logically with this particular meal? Not putting some sort of really random food in there just because it's got a lot of fiber. You've got to make sure it kind of sticks and it kind of fits. Cool. So now on to number 9. So this is about now having fresh fruit. That can be canned, it can be just a normal piece of fruit for your dessert, and again, or as a snack. So coming back to like what we said at the beginning, if you're having that yogurt, your fage, or fage, again, I don't know what it's called. Someone please tell me how you pronounce that. I keep saying it, but I cannot pronounce it. If you're having that as a dessert, you could have some fruit in there, just to, again, increase the fiber content. And again, thinking about good snack choices, thinking about good dessert choices, so you're not ever feeling deprived. That's the key thing I want to get across here, is that people think about, optimizing nutrition as it has to be boring. It has to be, clean foods, and it has to be this really dull, boring process that no one actually wants to follow. But that's not the way it needs to be. You can incorporate more fiber into your diet, more nutritious foods into your diet, by actually doing it in a little bit more of an interesting and, let's say, tasty way. So cool, they are your 9 ways to get more fiber in your diet. Hopefully you can see that it's not as difficult as you may have previously thought. It doesn't have to be this super headache. So let's recap on all of these. Let's firstly say it's about, if you're having breakfast, pick a high fiber breakfast cereal or porridge or something like that that allows you to increase the fiber content. Think about with that meal as well, adding in some fresh fruits and dried fruit and nuts, etc., or in your sort of breakfasty snacks to increase fiber content. If you're having bread, think about switching to wholemeal and seeded whole grain breads. When you're looking at pasta and bulgur wheat and rice, think about whole grain and whole wheat options there too. When you then think about carbohydrate options, also consider potatoes with skin on. Again, like I said before, potatoes, one of the most filling foods you can have, so great if you're suffering with hunger and cravings. Then in terms of snacks, try fruit, vegetable sticks, crackers, oatcakes, nuts, seeds, all those sorts of things. Again, just keep a lid on the calories. Obviously, nuts can contain quite a number of calories, so just make sure you're watching the calorie number. When it comes to your main meals, pack those full of veggies, green, fibrous veggies, broccoli. Everyone hates the whole chicken, rice, and broccoli thing, but done in a good way and done in a tasty way, it's actually a pretty good meal. Then number 8, think about pulses, beans, lentils, chickpeas, logically placed within stews, curries, salads, chilies, whatever it may be. Incorporate those into those meals, and that can be a great option to add in some fiber as well. Then lastly, when it comes to dessert, think of some fresh fruit, think of canned fruit, and either have them on their own or incorporate them into the meal that you're having. So they will be my 9 ways for you to get more fiber into your diet. And hopefully that gave you some ideas about what you can do to make some practical differences so that when you sit on the bog, you can actually have a nice, relaxing shite as you scroll through your Instagram feed, and not this sort of backed up, strained, not this eyeball straining, blood vessel popping war with your ass that you have right now. So hopefully you found that useful. Hopefully now you're going to get all fiber into your diet. Please do not send me any pictures of your new stools, even if they do resemble a baby's arm holding an apple. Send them to my father instead. Please do not send them to me. I do not want to see literally that shit. But for now, all I'll say is if you enjoyed this, let me know. Give it a little bit of an emoji of some description. You can come and drop a comment below. You can come and see me on Instagram at iron_paradise_fitness, and tell me that you loved it. And so for now, all I'll say is keep living the lean life. I'll speak to you soon. I'll see you again very, very soon for another installment of these fantastic live trainings.